This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back to the show. Julie A. Schejbal joining us. Excited to have her here. She's an estate attorney at the law offices of Julie A. Schejbal, based out of Dunkirk, Maryland. She joins us again today, and we're going to discuss, well, a lot. So stay tuned for what's in store. First and foremost, Julie, please introduce yourself to everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm an estate planning attorney. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I have a small practice, but I do all facets of estate planning, from basic wills and trusts and powers of attorney up to higher end things. And I also help people with probate and some elder law along the way. So I'm a full service estate planning firm.
Oh, there we go. Also,
Okay.
you with estate planning. We're going to talk a little bit about other considerations, as you mentioned, for business owners, right? Because this is something we
Exactly.
haven't discussed yet. So let's get a little bit of the background on this before we begin.
So, sure. So to sort of set the background, or the idea is, we're talking really about small businesses, and people think about a small business like the mom and pop shop, and it can
Mhm.
be, but some small businesses are quite big. I mean, if you have a local builder who's building a lot of homes, it's a very valuable business. And they could have more than mom and dad. It could be family owned, it could be many family members, or it could be, a bunch of friends or what like-minded individuals got together and created this business. But it's generally, it's not publicly traded like Apple, or who has, I don't know, trillions of shareholders. So it's a small family-owned or friend-owned kind of business. And maybe they've handled the basics. They've set up a corporation, they've set up a limited liability company, maybe a partnership. They sort of have those documents in place. And everybody's getting along. They're in each other's weddings. They're, working toward this common goal of building the widgets or whatever they're doing. And they have this great understanding of what it takes to get where they want to go financially, and all the fits and starts along the way, delays, all
I
of
was
that
going to
type
say,
of.
well, what can go wrong? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the whole business side, and that's where you're making the widgets. That's the business owner. They're focusing on all of the ups and downs of the business, and they know how to hopefully overcome the fits and starts.
All right. Well, then what do you want to talk a little about why do these events kind of pose some problems?
So sure. So it's sort of the idea of what can go wrong, and it's not
And
so much what you're thinking about, like, oh, I'm a builder and I need vanities for my bathrooms and they're on back order. No, this is more what goes wrong in the event of death, disability, divorce, retirement, creditors, like that. Those people that are sort of an outer layer of problems that can go wrong.
mm, interesting. So what would you say then these events pose problems? Why, I should say.
So what happens is that if you haven't planned for this, you die, you own, interest in the widget making company. All of a sudden, your interest in the widget making company belong to your spouse, your children, if you don't have a spouse,
Mm-hmm.
maybe cousins, wherever. It's going somewhere else. And all of a sudden, the remaining business owners now find themselves in business with somebody they didn't sign up for. Maybe somebody that they like, they're cordial with socially, maybe somebody they don't like, and all of a sudden it's this wild card, right? Who does and may not understand anything about how the business works. So you've got, and they're poking the bear or poking in. They go, why aren't I getting more money out of this? All of these things, and then the other people are trying to run the business at the same time. They, may want access to your books and records, lack of understanding of how things are going to work. Um, and in this case, we're talking about smaller entities. So one
Mm-hmm.
loose cannon or one individual that brings in can cause a lot of disruption. And all of a sudden you're focused not on the widgets, but on the disruptor. And, if you have shares in Apple or anything publicly traded, you get divorced. Even if you
Mm-hmm.
transfer those shares to your ex-spouse, Apple doesn't care. That doesn't even make a ripple in Apple's, world, right? And
Yeah.
then if you don't want it, also got a ready-made market. You can go sell it on the exchange. Small business, you don't have that type of luxury.
Well, also, you've been doing this for quite a few years, so I know
Yeah.
you have some great advice on what the small business owner could do. What should they be doing and when?
So yeah, so exactly. So first, let's follow, make sure you've covered your fundamentals. Make sure that your basic estate planning documents
Hmm.
that we've been talking about, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, medical directives, they're all in place. Get the fundamentals done first. And then, and this may include while you're doing it, sort of looking at, well, particularly if it's a one man or one woman shop,
Yeah.
like who could take over this business? I've got three kids and maybe one of them, like I met with a client the other day and she had two children and they have a small real estate business and her son looks like maybe the ideal person to take over. He's, got the time, whatever. And daughter's very successful at something else, but she doesn't have the time to put into this family owned business. So looking at who might be the best to run, but saying, in that case, we're looking at fairness, right? If we give the son the
Yeah.
business, he may end up with all the money and the daughter doesn't, or value and daughter doesn't end up with any. So that doesn't make people happy. So it's kind of also in those fundamentals, sort of figuring out the legacy part of it. But the second part may be particularly if you have multiple owners, you're in business with your siblings, you're in business with your college buddies, whatever, is creating a buy sell agreement among the owners. So you're kind of establishing some certainty with what's going to happen if somebody dies or gets divorced or retires or whatever it looks like.
Got it. All right. Well, what else for today? We're going to talk more about this whole situation, how you can fix it, and then there's something which is the buy-sell agreement. Is that what we want to get into next?
Right. So what the buy sell agreement is, it's another document, but it's a legally binding contract
Okay.
among the shareholders or the business owners.
Okay.
And what it's doing is it's creating this binding method to transfer the assets or the interest in the business upon a triggering event, death, disability, divorce. So
Mm-hmm.
it's saying if you're in business, Jill, with your brother and you die, it says, okay, my shares of the business will go to my brother. But what is happening is then the document itself is saying your brother's paying you X amount of dollars for those business interests. So you're kind of creating, hopefully, everybody happy. Other business owners have all the shares of the business. The spouse, the kids got paid out, so they have cash. They can walk away. They may be happier with the cash, and the business owners continue to run the business, and they don't have interference from these third parties who may have had no experience with the business. So what it's doing is basically creating some stability in the transfer of these assets upon death or disability or retirement. And the other thing you can do is you can create some payout terms, right? So we're talking about this, and the business, if they need to buy somebody out, they also have the liquidity to do this. So maybe you can say, all right, we'll pay you out over 5 years, so you're not
Yeah.
bankrupting all the cash. And sometimes with the liquidity, they're including like life insurance. I'm not here to sell anybody life insurance, God forbid, but in this case, it does seem to work. It does have some advantages because Jill, again, in the situation of you and your brother, you die. He owned a life insurance policy, $1 million on your life. He gets the money, he gives it to your kids or your spouse. They get the stock, and so they've created a mechanism to fund or pay this out, so it can help that way.
Got it. All right. Oh gosh. Yeah. And what if you have family members that you don't trust? You need to make sure you trust these people that you're leaving behind to do all this work, right?
Well, it is a legally binding contract.
It is.
So
Okay. Okay.
if, the spouse or the kids say, oh, well, this is bogus, then,
Yeah.
it is enforceable. So they can find themselves in court, either being forced to pay out or forced to transfer the shares. So I don't think I mean, I haven't ever had to do that, thankfully, but I mean, it is legally binding. So you do, it is on your estate or your spouse or whatever. So it does carry the effectiveness of a contract. But
Beautiful.
hopefully, you don't end up in litigation. I mean,
Yeah.
as an aside, where you can end up in litigation is, so one of the things that also happens in a buy sell is it sort of sets certainty by determining a price. So it either
Mhm.
says we're going to determine the price based on a formula. Maybe it's 5 times net earnings at somebody's death, or maybe a third party has already appraised the business and said it's worth $5 million, and somebody shares 20%, so they'll get $1 million upon death. So it sets some certainty on how you're going to develop this, um, purchase price,
Yep.
and that can go a long way too,
Oh yeah, let's
because
talk about that. Yeah, that's
you know,
yeah.
imagine you own this business, you're getting divorced. And I do know divorce work. I shared office space with a divorce attorney several years back, and she was very nice, or she and her son in law were very nice. They were very good lawyers, but man, were they busy. And man, could that be contentious. So the idea here is if you get divorced and you're the business owner, it's sort of saying, okay, my business, my share of the business is worth $1 million. Then the spouse is, in lieu of getting a portion of the business, 50%, they can
God.
get 50% of the like $1 million. They can get a $500,000 in cash or whatever it is. And the other thing is with that is it's not just saying, if you without something to create the value, they're saying, well, just because you say it's worth $1 million, how do I not know it's worth 2 million or 5 million or 10 million? And so all of a sudden, not only you're battling your spouse or ex-spouse for the divorce and all that stuff that comes with it, you're battling them over the value of your business. Or maybe
Uh,
you're battling, you're the business owner and your partner or other shareholder has died, and now you're battling their spouse or their heirs or beneficiaries over the value. And you know that's a pain. Your books and records are open to everybody, not a good thing. And by the way, somebody's still got to make the widgets, so your focus is in court, and you're paying also a bunch of lawyers, and not on making, figuring out what, doing your widgets. You're kind of killing, you have the potential to kill the golden goose, right?
got it. All right. So do you want to talk more about the price, the predetermined buyout price, and how that's all determined and why it's helpful?
So yeah, so I think the biggest thing is, again, it can help limit the possibility of disputes among the owners. You have negotiated this buy sell agreement like a contract, and you've said, okay, we're going to use 5 times earnings or whatever the number is, or a value. We had it appraised, we agreed the value of the business is 5 million. So you sort of set that in stone, and it is like a contract, right? You're sitting there, you're all alive, getting along. I'm hoping you're also thinking, well, you know, if you're the business owner, right, you want to say, well, if I'm going to buy Julie out, I want to pay the least amount of money possible. If I'm Julie, I'm going to say I want the highest amount. So
Hmm.
hopefully you negotiate a price that is somewhat fair to everybody. I mean, I say this, I think other people do. What's the sign of a good negotiation? Everybody leaves the table a little unhappy,
Yeah.
you know, because if somebody wins, somebody lost, right? So this is sort of, it sets that dispute. It helps limit that possibility.
Got it. All right. Well, just to remind everyone, we are here talking about our estate planning and things to know if you're a business owner, the very important things you need to know. And with our full service estate planning law firm, we are joined here to talk more about this. And obviously, in practice, Julie A. Schejbal, many years of experience, and she can help you with trust, wills, estate planning, and so much more, individuals and business, as we're talking today. So, let's continue the conversation about other considerations we have here for business owners. What did you want to jump to next?
So I think the other thing is that if you set this in place, you probably want to, like anything, review it about every 5 years, right? So if you set a flat fee, let a flat number for your buyout, maybe you find out, you look at that, you dust off the document and go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wow,
Wait.
this value is woefully low, or wow,
Yeah.
it's too high. Things have changed. So you could readjust, and make sure it still works. And the other thing is that, I mean, there's the downside too of this is, like anything else, there is a cost. It can get expensive because
Mm-hmm.
you may need to hire accountants or business valuation experts to sort of set your value. And that isn't necessarily inexpensive, but I think on the other side, if you're looking at the litigation side, you're probably looking at hiring all of these people at that time, and it's going to be expensive there too. So it is one of those things that it sometimes an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I think it's a very important tool to think about if you're looking at a business and you're looking at your wealth transfer for the business.
Got it. Well, what other considerations do we have to talk about for today with our business owners?
Well, I think then you just again go back
Is
to the
it
beginning, make sure that you have your fundamentals in place, you've done your wills, you've done your powers of attorney, you've done your medical directives, because it doesn't do much good to have the buy sell in place and not have a valid will, because maybe you're not fighting over your business, you're fighting over your estate with the cash. So I think it's important to have all of those things in play. And I think it's also important within the family structure, if it's a family business, looking at who is going to take over in the next, for the next generation. Mom and dad start the business, or grandma and grandpa, or whoever it
mm-hmm.
was, and they came to this idea with, whatever the skill was that they needed. Now you've gone down maybe next generation, everybody's got the same idea, they're in the same skill set. And then, but the longer you go, people may not be as interested in it, right? They've done different
True.
things. Maybe they're, doctors or lawyers or engineers or actors or whatever it is. Like they've moved on from that. And so it's also the balancing who's going to pick up the pieces at the end, and who's, satisfied, who is will be good at doing this to keep this legacy going.
Got it. Wow. Well, we still got 9 more minutes left in the show. Plenty more time to talk. What else did you want to make sure we add for today to this conversation? Or obviously we can move on to, some of the other services you provide. Do you want to tell us how this has helped some business owners out? Do you have any specific stories as well?
Well, I'm working on one now, hopefully that this will
Oh,
help, because we are looking at this sort of not divide. I think the family is connected, but it's sort of the idea of one, like I think I mentioned previously, one child is interested in taking over dad's legacy, and he's committed to doing this. The other child has a different career. They're vetted in their career, and it's sort of like, how are we going to continue this on a fairness level when the parents pass away? So we're kind of tying that in. We just started that, Jill, so I can't tell you how that's going to play out.
bold.
And I think that, just to switch gears a little bit, it's a little different, but I also represent a lot of farmers. And I think people who have land face similar challenges, not with the idea of the buy sell, but the idea of who's going to take care, if I'm a committed in farmer, who's going to take care, or maybe you own a vineyard, right, or something like that. Who's going to which of the next generation is going to take care, is the best suited to take care of my land, and how can I treat the other children fairly? And we're always looking at that, because somebody will say, oh well, Julie's the farmer, we're going to give her the land. And I'm like, well, yeah, but what are you going to do for, how are you going to true up Lisa and Nikki? And then, and what if I decide, yeah, I've been a scheming person all my life, I got the farm, and now I'm going to take it. I got no interest in farming it. I'm going to sell it to the developer, Jill, and make many, many zeros. And Lisa and Nikki are off, they're out of luck. So there's a different, when you're talking about legacy planning, there's different, businesses, farms, they add a different wrinkle that you have to be
Uh,
cognizant of.
wow. The farmer, Julie the farmer. I like
Yeah,
that.
I think it would be a very scary thing. I don't think it would work too well, but you
Oh
know,
gosh. Oh my goodness.
all
And
my
then,
farming clients, if they're hearing this, are just laughing right now hysterically. So
oh my
I'm
gosh.
happy
See,
that
I
I'm
didn't
able
know
to
that.
represent.
See, I didn't know you had a lot of farming clients. Learning something new every week from you for
Yeah.
sure. Oh my goodness. Well, any other transactions, any other business advice that you want to give to our listeners?
Again, I think it's just,
It's
let's reiterate, pound it into the ground, get these documents in place. Get your wills, your trust, your powers of attorney in place, because if you don't, it's a recipe for disaster. And that's, then you're gonna, people say, oh, well, I don't want to pay the legal fees. And I get it, they're not cheap, but you're either going to pay now, or your estate's going to pay greater in the future because maybe you're trying to unwind the fighting between the children. And I always it's like I sound negative, but the fighting is what resonates, right? Because that's what you remember. You know, they were all if everything went perfect, we'd have no need for lawyers, or the need for lawyers would be cut down by about 90%. So, you know.
And is there like a busy season for you, or things go like a hot now the summer's here? Are things quieter, busier? Like what is your busy time, or is it all the time?
Well, I think it sort of ebbs and flows. I think summer is a little quieter because people aren't looking for wills as much. I mean, they can be, but they're like if you have young children, the kids are off school, you're taking care of the kids, or maybe shuttling the kids back and forth. People are going on vacation. We're doing everything that we all love to do in the summer, right? Cookouts, whatever it is. So the focus isn't quite there, but it just kind of ebbs and flows. What I find is interesting in an odd, nerdy way is that what does happen is these things tend to happen in multiples. Not necessarily everything coming in threes, like celebrity deaths, but
Oh yeah.
maybe somebody will come in and it'll be a blended family, a second marriage. And I haven't had that type of case come in a couple months. And then 3 or 4 more come in within a 2-week period.
Wow.
So it just tends to be that's just sort of an odd thing, but it can ebb and flow a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little busier sort of after tax season when people have met with their accountants and they've been looking at their stuff and their accountant goes, dude, you need a will. And then
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing ramps up but it can be just kind of ebbs and flows. It's hard to say.
Got it. Interesting. Well, it's always a great time speaking with you, always informative. And again, if you check out, the website, it's all legal guidance she offers to protect your assets. And just to confirm, as a probate and estate planner, what states do you work in?
So I'm admitted in Maryland, so most do work in Maryland. But if somebody comes to me and they say, "Oh, I need help in Florida," I can't prepare the documents, but I have done work with other attorneys in different states, and I may be able to say, "Hey, go see Sam. He's really good, or he at least can, or she can set you up down there." So I do have a reasonable cadre of a referral network. So,
Great. So
and
I
if
know we've,
anybody wants to call and talk, I can talk to them too.
go ahead.
I
What's the
can't.
number and what's the website?
The website is www.jasestatelaw.com, and the phone number is 410-286-8100. And I offer a free initial consultation. People want to come in, I tell them, like, we can talk about your will, your trust, whatever. Sometimes we talk about, how the local sports teams are doing, tennis season, whatever it looks like. So we can chat about, try to answer all of their questions.
Beautiful. And I know also, again, one thing we haven't talked about is elder law, pet trust. There's other things, right? Where there's so much that you do. So I know we have
Right.
plenty more shows. We'll get to it. But
Yeah,
thank
we'll
you
talk
again
about
for
some of
being
that other
here.
stuff.
Always a
Yes,
pleasure having you. Enjoy the rest of your day in the hot weather, right?
you
It's
do.
here, it's
Yes. Well,
upon
it's
us.
finally here. Maybe we can finally enjoy summer, go to the beach, go to the pool, have a
I
cookout. I've
agree.
been waiting for that.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you again. You have a
You're welcome.
fantastic day.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.